My CEO husband doesn't know I'm his childhood love. The first time Ethan Hayes saw Adrian Laurent again, he almost forgot how to breathe. For 16 years, he had imagined this moment in countless ways. Sometimes Adrian would recognize him immediately, call out his name with that warm smile he had never forgotten, and laugh about how much they had both changed. Other times, Ethan imagined an emotional reunion under the rain, just like the day they had promised to find each other again. Reality was far crueler. Adrian walked into the grand conference hall wearing a perfectly tailored black suit, his sharp features carrying the calm confidence of someone who had built an empire before turning 30. Every employee stood respectfully as the CEO entered, but Ethan could only stare. The little boy who had once shared his umbrella was now one of the youngest billionaires in the country. Adrian's cold grey eyes briefly met Ethan's. They passed over him without the slightest hint of recognition. Nothing. Not even a flicker. Ethan lowered his head before anyone noticed the disappointment written across his face. "So," he whispered to himself, forcing a small smile, "you really forgot. 6 months earlier. Ethan, this marriage is not a request." His grandfather's voice echoed through the enormous dining room. "It is necessary." Ethan slowly placed his teacup on the table. "I don't understand. Our company is collapsing. The Laurent Group has offered a merger." His grandfather sighed. "The condition is a marriage between the two families." Ethan almost laughed. "An arranged marriage? This isn't a historical drama." "No. It's business." Ethan looked toward the large window, watching rain slide down the glass. Marriage had never been part of his plans. He dreamed of becoming a successful illustrator, opening a cozy art studio, and living an ordinary life. Not marrying a billionaire he'd never met. Or so he thought. His grandfather slid a photograph across the table. The instant Ethan saw the picture, time stopped. Dark hair, calm expression, beautiful eyes, older, sharper, but unmistakable. "Adrian." His fingers trembled as he picked up the photograph. It was him, the boy who had disappeared 16 years ago. The boy Ethan had searched for through social media, newspapers, old classmates, and every possible connection. The boy who had promised, "I'll find you," without realizing it. Tears blurred Ethan's vision. His grandfather misunderstood. "I know this is difficult." Ethan quickly wiped his eyes. "No, it's okay. I'll marry him." 16 years earlier. The summer festival was crowded with music and colorful lanterns. 8-year-old Ethan wandered away from his parents while chasing a paper airplane. By the time he looked around, they were gone. Fear quickly replaced excitement. "Ethan!" His small voice disappeared into the noisy streets. He tried to hold back tears. Then someone gently tapped his shoulder. "Are you lost?" A slightly older boy stood behind him, holding 2 cups of strawberry milk. His smile was bright enough to make Ethan stop crying immediately. "My name is Adrian." "I'm Ethan." Adrian handed him one of the drinks. "My grandmother says crying doesn't solve anything. So, let's find your family together." For the next 3 hours, the two boys searched every corner of the festival. They laughed, shared snacks, played games, forgot they had only just met. Eventually, security officers found Ethan's frantic parents. His mother hugged him tightly. Before leaving, Ethan turned toward Adrian. "Will we meet again?" Adrian thought for a moment before taking off the bright red scarf wrapped around his neck. He gently placed it around Ethan's shoulders. "If you ever miss me, keep this. And one day, I'll find you." The promise lasted exactly 3 weeks. Adrian's family suddenly moved overseas after his father's company expanded internationally. Months later, a terrible highway accident nearly claimed their lives. Although Adrian physically recovered, he lost most of his childhood memories. Doctors called it trauma-induced retrograde amnesia. Faces, places, names, everything before the accident became scattered fragments. The little boy, wearing the red scarf, disappeared from his memory forever. But Ethan never forgot. Every birthday, he looked at that faded scarf. Every new year, he wished Adrian would return. Every shooting star, he made the same wish. Please let him remember me. Present day. The wedding was held inside one of the country's most luxurious hotels. Crystal chandeliers reflected thousands of tiny lights across the ballroom. Journalists crowded the entrance. News reporters eagerly described the event. The marriage between Laurent Group and Hayes Corporation marks one of the biggest Don't leave me. They echoed in his mind as he stood in the kitchen preparing breakfast. It had become a quiet routine over the past few weeks. Even though Adrian rarely ate at home, Ethan still left a warm meal on the dining table every morning. Most days, the food returned untouched. Still, he continued, hoping that someday Adrian would sit down long enough to enjoy it. As Ethan arranged fresh fruit on a plate, the housekeeper smiled warmly. You know, Mr. Laurent hasn't eaten breakfast at home in years. Ethan looked up. Really? She nodded. But these days the plates come back empty. Ethan blinked in surprise. He eats them every morning after you leave for the studio. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt a tiny spark of happiness. Adrian had never mentioned it, but he had noticed. Across town, Adrian sat in the executive boardroom, staring absent-mindedly at the presentation on the screen. Mr. Laurent? One of the directors cleared his throat. Your opinion? Adrian didn't answer immediately. Instead, his thoughts drifted back to the strange dream that had woken him before dawn. Rain. A small bus stop. A laughing child. A bright red scarf wrapped around tiny shoulders. The dream felt incredibly real. Yet every time he tried to see the other boy's face, everything dissolved into white light. He rubbed his temple. Lately, these fragments had become more frequent. Always the same scarf. Always the same promise he couldn't quite hear. That evening, Ethan received an unexpected invitation dinner. 7 o'clock. Don't make other plans? No explanation, no signature. Just a short message from Adrian. Ethan smiled despite himself. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't even warm. But it was the first time Adrian had invited him anywhere. The restaurant overlooked the city's river, its floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting thousands of lights dancing across the water. Adrian arrived precisely on time. You've been waiting long? Only a few minutes. He gave a small nod before taking his seat. For several moments, silence settled between them. Finally, Adrian spoke. I heard from the staff that you've been preparing breakfast every day. Ethan looked down, suddenly embarrassed. It wasn't a big deal. It was. Adrian hesitated, as if choosing unfamiliar words. I haven't had someone care about things like that in a long time. Ethan offered a gentle smile. You work too hard. I know. Another silence followed, but this one didn't feel uncomfortable. It felt peaceful. As they finished dinner, rain began tapping softly against the windows. Ethan laughed quietly. You always seem to appear when it rains. Adrian frowned. What do you mean? Ethan quickly realized what he had said and looked away. Nothing. Still, the sentence lingered in Adrian's mind. A week later, Laurent Group prepared for its annual charity gala. Executives, celebrities, and investors filled the ballroom. Ethan stood near the balcony, preferring the quiet air outside to the crowded hall inside. "You must be Ethan." A smooth voice interrupted his thoughts. He turned to see Daniel Cross, a senior executive who had worked beside Adrian for years. "So you're the famous husband." Ethan smiled politely. "It's nice to meet you." Daniel's smile never reached his eyes. "You know, people are curious." "About what?" "How someone with no business experience became the CEO's spouse overnight." The words were wrapped in politeness, yet their meaning was unmistakable. Before Ethan could respond, another voice cut through the tension. "I chose him." Both men turned. Adrian stood behind them. His expression remained calm, but there was an unmistakable firmness in his voice. "If anyone has questions about my decisions, they can ask me directly." Daniel forced a smile. "Of course." After he walked away, Ethan looked at Adrian. "You didn't have to do that." "I know." "So, why did you?" Adrian looked toward the ballroom. "Because you're my husband." Simple words. Yet they warmed Ethan's heart more than Adrian could possibly imagine. That night, a violent storm swept across the city. Lightning flashed outside the mansion as thunder echoed through the hills. The electricity suddenly failed. The entire house fell into darkness. Ethan searched the hallway for candles. As another flash illuminated the room, he heard a heavy crash upstairs. "Adrian!" No answer. He hurried toward the study and found Adrian sitting on the floor beside an overturned bookshelf. His breathing was uneven. His hands trembled. "Adrian!" Ethan knelt beside him. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." Adrian closed his eyes tightly. "The lightning? It reminds me of